The joke that silenced the stars. The Galactic Coalition had a tradition. Whenever a new species joined the assembly, the veterans welcomed them with harmless questions. Some asked about their homeworld's gravity. Others joked about their strangest foods. The military delegates usually exchanged stories about training accidents or embarrassing fast battles. It was all meant to ease the tension. Humanity had been a member for exactly 43 days. To most of the galaxy, the humans were confusing. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest. Their reaction times were average. Their eyesight was mediocre compared to the avian races, and several species could lift 10 times more weight. Yet humans kept solving impossible problems. Their diplomats smiled through impossible negotiations. Their engineers repaired damaged warp cores with tools that looked centuries out of date. Their explorers volunteered for missions everyone else considered suicidal. No one quite understood them. Especially General Kavek. The towering reptilian commander represented one of the oldest warrior civilizations in known space. His skills were covered with ceremonial battle markings, each one earned through victorious campaigns spanning nearly 200 years. His people respected strength above everything else. And to Kavek, humans looked soft. The coalition's annual military banquet was already loud with laughter when the conversation drifted toward battlefield stories. An insectoid admiral proudly clicked his mandibles. My confirmed elimination stand at 812. Several officers nodded respectfully. A massive crystalline commander emitted shimmering pulses. 1,406. More applause. Then Kavek grinned. My people count only worthy opponents. He leaned back. 3,120. Even veteran officers straightened in admiration. The number represented centuries of war. Across the enormous circular table sat humanity's representative, Commander Daniel Carter. He looked almost disappointingly ordinary. Mid-40s. Dark military uniform. Short brown hair beginning to gray around the temples. No visible cybernetic enhancements. No impressive alien physiology. Just a man quietly eating his meal while everyone else competed. Kavek noticed him. He smirked. And what about humanity? Several guests turned toward Carter. The human looked up from his drink. What about us? Your kill count. A few delegates chuckled. It was obviously meant as friendly teasing. Everyone knew humans had entered interstellar politics only recently. Surely they hadn't fought enough wars to compare. Someone laughed. What is it? 20. Another guest. 50. Even Carter smiled. You really want to know? Kavek crossed his arms. Entertain us. Silence slowly spread across the chamber. The human placed his glass on the table with remarkable care. I stopped counting. Laughter erupted. Kavek slapped the table. Convenient answer. Carter nodded. It is. So estimate. The human looked around the room. Every face waited. Every species expected another joke. Instead, Carter quietly asked. Personally. Kavek frowned. There are categories. Of course. The laughter became uncertain. Carter folded his hands. If we are discussing direct combat. He paused as though searching distant memories. Somewhere around 300. That number alone drew a few surprised looks. 300 personal eliminations placed him among experienced soldiers. Respectable. But nothing extraordinary. Kavek shrugged. I expected more. Carter simply nodded. I wasn't finished. The room became quieter. I've commanded operations. Nobody interrupted. My orders resulted in approximately 12,000 confirmed enemy combatant deaths. Several conversations stopped entirely. The insectoid admiral tilted his head. 12,000. Approximately. Kavek frowned. Impressive. Carter continued before anyone could respond. Strategic planning increased that considerably. No one laughed anymore. What does that mean? Someone asked. It means I helped design campaigns. How many? The human's eyes became strangely distant. We estimate somewhere between 90 and 120,000. The banquet hall fell silent. Folks stopped moving. Even the service drones paused as they navigated between tables. Kavek's confident smile faded. You're exaggerating. I wish I were. Something in Carter's voice changed. Not pride. Not excitement. Regret. Deep. Ancient. Heavy. The human took another sip of water. Then he said something no one expected. Those numbers only include people carrying weapons. No one understood. What do you mean? Carter looked directly at Kavek. You asked for my kill count. Yes. I assumed you meant everything. A cold feeling spread across the enormous chamber. The veteran commander suddenly realized the human hadn't been boasting. He had been trying to answer accurately. Kavek cleared his throat. What exactly do you mean by everything? Carter hesitated. For the first time that evening, he looked uncomfortable. I don't usually discuss it. Why? Because the galaxy hasn't asked before. Someone whispered. Asked what? The human's gaze drifted toward the panoramic windows overlooking the stars. My species has records going back thousands of years. His voice became almost emotionless. We are very good at keeping statistics. No one moved. No one spoke. Carter looked back at the table. If we are including civilians. The air itself seemed to freeze. Then the answer becomes much larger. Kavek forced a laugh. How much larger? The human answered with terrifying calm. I'd need access to the historical archives to give an exact figure. He paused. But it's measured. Another pause. In the billions. No one breathed. The silence became absolute. Across the chamber, even the musicians had stopped playing. Everyone stared at the quiet human officer. Not because of the number, but because he had spoken it with no trace of pride. Only sorrow. Commander Daniel Carter slowly stood. I think I've ruined dinner. He gave a small, apologetic smile. My apologies. As he walked toward the exit, no one tried to stop him. Behind him, hundreds of veteran warriors sat frozen in their seats. For the first time in their lives, the galaxy began to wonder exactly what kind of world could produce a species that answered a joke with a number measured in billions and sounded haunted by every single one. A history written in ashes. No one resumed eating after Commander Carter left. The grand banquet hall, built to celebrate unity among the stars, had become unnaturally quiet. Hundreds of military leaders sat in stunned silence, replaying the human's final words. Measured in the billions. General Kavek stared at the untouched glass in front of him. For the first time in decades, he felt uncertain. The old reptilian warrior had expected the human to exaggerate for attention. Instead, Carter had sounded like a man remembering a funeral. An hour later, an emergency meeting of the Coalition Defense Council was called. Not because anyone believed humanity posed an immediate threat. Because nobody could understand what they had just heard. The council chamber was smaller than the banquet hall but carried far greater weight. Only senior admirals, generals, intelligence chiefs, and ambassadors were permitted inside. Commander Carter sat at one end of the circular table. He looked exactly as he had earlier. Calm. Professional. Tired. No guards stood around him. No accusations had been made. Council Chairwoman Lysara finally broke the silence. Commander Carter. I know why I'm here. You frightened a room full of veteran soldiers. I noticed. A few uneasy chuckles escaped before fading again. Lysara folded her hands. We'd like clarification. You deserve it. General Kavek leaned forward. Billions. Yes. How? Carter remained quiet for several seconds. Then he answered with one sentence. Because humans spent most of our history fighting other humans. The room froze. What? We want united. The translator drones confirmed the sentence. No mistranslation. One of the avian admirals blinked. You mean, civil conflicts? Carter nodded. Thousands of them. Thousands. Our recorded history stretches back several millennia. He activated the holographic projector embedded in the table. A blue sphere appeared. Earth. Our home. It looked peaceful from orbit. Blue oceans. White clouds. Green continents. Beautiful. Fragile. Then the image shifted. Dates began appearing. Ancient kingdoms. Empires. Republics. Dynasties. Every few seconds. Red flashes spread across the continents. Wars. Thousands of them. Some tiny. Others spanning continents. The hologram accelerated. The flashes multiplied until entire centuries glowed crimson. Silence filled the chamber. Impossible, whispered someone. It happened. Carter pointed toward one period. The First World War. The display highlighted the early 20th century. Approximately 20 million dead. Several officers gasped. Second World War. The display expanded. The casualty counter climbed. 10 million. 20 million. 40 million. 60 million. Finally stopping beyond 70 million. Nobody spoke. The insectoid admiral slowly asked. That was one war? Yes. Against another species? No. An artificial intelligence? No. General Kavek frowned. Then who? Carter looked him in the eye. Ourselves. Even Kavek had no reply. The hologram continued. Smaller wars. Proxy wars. Revolutions. Civil wars. Genocides. Famines made worse by conflict. Each one added names. Numbers. Cities. Memorials. No glorious music accompanied the presentation. Only quiet. Painful quiet. Lysara finally asked. How did your civilization survive? Carter gave a sad smile. By learning. After so much death. Eventually. He enlarged Earth's timeline again. You see the wars. The display zoomed further. Now look at the spaces between them. The red faded. Longer periods of peace appeared. Scientific breakthroughs. Medical discoveries. Space exploration. Global cooperation. Disaster relief. International organizations. The room watched civilization slowly change. It wasn't quick, Carter admitted. It took generations. General Kavek crossed his arms. If your species was capable of such destruction. He hesitated. What stopped you? The answer came immediately. The cost. The losses. The memories. Carter looked around the chamber. Every nation believed victory would justify the suffering. He paused. They were wrong. No one argued. We built museums. Why? So children would understand. We built cemeteries. So names wouldn't disappear. We recorded testimonies. so future generations would hear survivors instead of politicians. The council listened without interruption. Our greatest heroes weren't always the soldiers. Who were they? The ones who prevented the next war. An intelligence officer finally asked the question everyone feared. If humans killed billions. He swallowed. How many enemy species have you exterminated? Carter looked genuinely confused. None. Silence. None. None. You've never destroyed another civilization. No. You've never committed planetary genocide. No. Then? The officer blinked. Every number you quoted. Was humanity harming itself? Carter nodded once. Mostly. The word echoed through the chamber. Mostly. Not entirely. Lysara noticed. You said mostly. I did. What does that mean? For the first time, Carter looked uncomfortable. There were incidents. What kind? After we reached the stars. The room leaned forward. Our first contact wasn't peaceful. General Kavek narrowed his eyes. You fought another species. Yes. And we won. How? Carter sighed. It wasn't much of a war. The council exchanged confused glances. What happened? The invaders expected us to surrender. They underestimated you. They misunderstood us. In what way? Carter's expression became distant. They believed humans feared death. And we do. Everyone nodded. Then what's different? Carter answered quietly. We fear failing the people behind us even more. No one spoke. The invasion lasted 17 days. What became of the attackers? We accepted their surrender. You didn't wipe them out? No. Why not? The human looked almost surprised by the question. Because once someone lays down their weapon. He folded his hands. They stop being your enemy. General Kavek lowered his eyes. He suddenly remembered every war his people had fought. Every city burned after victory. Every defeated army hunted down. Every celebration. For the first time in his long military career. He wondered whether his civilization had mistaken vengeance for strength. Commander Carter deactivated the hologram. Earth disappeared. Only the stars remained above the council table. Then he spoke one final sentence. If you want to know why humans are dangerous. His voice became barely louder than a whisper. It's not because we've learned how to wage war. Every eye fixed on him. It's because we finally learned why we shouldn't. No one in the chamber realized it yet. But somewhere beyond coalition space, the ancient empire had already begun preparing a war that would test whether humanity had truly learned that lesson. The empire that chose the wrong species. 3 days after the council meeting, every major government in the Galactic Coalition had received the same classified report. Subject: humanity's military history. The report was unlike any intelligence file the galaxy had ever archived. It contained no boasts. No declarations of superiority. No propaganda. Instead, it catalogued thousands of years of mistakes, wars started over pride, fear, greed, religion, territory, resources, and simple misunderstanding. Every chapter ended the same way: victory measured against unbearable loss. To many coalition leaders, the report was unsettling. To one civilization, it was amusing. Far beyond coalition borders, the imperial capital of the Vakesh Dominion floated above a crimson gas giant. The Dominion had ruled hundreds of systems for nearly 5,000 years. Its rulers believed only one law mattered. The strong deserved to rule. When their spies delivered the coalition's intelligence summary, Emperor Virex laughed. So the famous humans are killers. His chief strategist nodded. They fought among themselves for millennia. The Emperor smiled. Excellent. The court exchanged curious glances. They've already done our work for us. The strategist frowned. Your Majesty. A species that destroys itself cannot possess discipline. He stood before a massive stamp. They mistake endurance for strength. One admiral hesitated. Our intelligence also confirms they defeated the Korean invasion. A minor pirate kingdom. They accepted the enemy's surrender. Verex laughed again. Mercy. The word dripped with contempt. The oldest weakness in history. The decision was made within minutes. The Vakesh Dominion would invade coalition territory. Not because it needed new worlds. Because it wanted obedient ones. Back in coalition space, Commander Carter stood inside Orbital Defense Station Helios. The station overlooked Earth's shipyards, where hundreds of civilian and military vessels moved in perfect coordination. General Kavek entered quietly. I've read your history. Carter nodded. I imagined you would. I was wrong about humans. You weren't alone. The old reptilian commander looked through the observation window. I used to believe a warrior earned honor only through victory. And now, I believe survival is the greater achievement. Carter smiled faintly. That's progress. Before either could continue, alarms echoed across the station. A communications officer rushed toward them. Commander. What happened? Coalition Border Fleet 7 has gone silent. The room became still. Location. The Orion frontier. Confirmed. Yes, sir. Another officer looked up. Long-range sensors show multiple hyperspace signatures. How many? The answer chilled everyone present. Too many to count. Within hours, the emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council convened once again. This time, there was no banquet. No laughter. Only grim faces illuminated by tactical displays. The holographic map flickered. Red markers spread across the frontier. One after another, a coalition listening posts disappeared. Admiral Sarah spoke fast. We've identified the attacking force. The image shifted. Massive black warships emerged from hyperspace. Each vessel dwarfed coalition cruisers. The Vakesh Dominion. Several delegates whispered in alarm. Even General Kavek's expression hardened. I've heard legends. Commander Carter hadn't. What kind of legends? Kavek answered quietly. They do not negotiate. Another officer added. They don't accept surrender. Lisara looked toward Carter. They're exactly what humanity used to fear becoming. Carter remained silent. The first refugee convoy arrived 12 hours later. Its ships were scarred by plasma fire. Entire sections had been torn away. Families stumbled through docking bays carrying whatever they had managed to save. Children. Medical kits. Photographs. Nothing more. Commander Carter walked among them without speaking. He stopped beside an elderly alien woman sitting alone. She held a cracked family portrait. My son stayed behind. Carter knelt beside her. Military. She nodded. He said someone had to protect the evacuation. The commander lowered his eyes. I know that feeling. She looked at him. You've seen this before. Yes. Does it ever become easier? He answered honestly. No. Hours later, a coalition commanders gathered around the strategic map. The numbers were discouraging. Enemy ships outnumbered coalition forces nearly 4-1. Their weapons possessed greater range. Their armor resisted most standard plasma batteries. Several admirals proposed immediate retreat. Others argued for surrender. General Kavek looked toward Carter. You've been unusually quiet. The human studied the map. I've been thinking. About patterns. He enlarged the enemy formation. They are advancing exactly as expected. What does that mean? They've never fought humans. Several officers exchanged puzzled looks. So, they assume we'll respond logically. Lisara frowned. Wouldn't we? Carter finally smiled. It wasn't a cheerful smile. It was the expression of someone recognizing an old, dangerous lesson. That's the problem. The room fell silent. What are you suggesting? The Dominion has superior ships. Correct. Superior numbers. Correct. Superior firepower. Correct. He nodded. Then we shouldn't fight the battle they prepared for. Kavek crossed his arms. What battle do you propose instead? Carter touched the holographic display. Supply routes appeared. Fuel depots. Communications relays. Industrial worlds. Logistics. The strongest army in history becomes helpless when it can't eat. One admiral blinked. You intend to attack their supplies. I intend to make their invasion impossible. Another officer objected. That's unconventional. Carter looked around the chamber. So was surviving humanity's own history. No one replied. Because deep down, they realized something unsettling. Every strategy humanity now considered ordinary had once been learned through centuries of painful experience. Commander Carter looked at the advancing enemy fleet one last time. Then he quietly gave his first order. Evacuate every civilian world along their projected path. But that means abandoning entire systems. Yes. We'll lose territory. We can reclaim territory. His voice became firm. We cannot reclaim lives. The council immediately understood. Humanity wasn't preparing to win at any cost. It was preparing to make sure innocent people survived the cost. And somewhere aboard the Vakesh flagship, Emperor Varek smiled as reports arrived describing coalition withdrawals. He believed the enemy was afraid. He had no idea. The humans weren't retreating. They were choosing the battlefield. The battlefield they never expected. Emperor Varek stood before the panoramic viewport of his flagship, Imperator, watching another coalition system fall. No resistance. No glorious fleet engagement. No desperate last stand. His admirals celebrated. The enemy retreats again, Your Majesty. They abandon another industrial world. The coalition is collapsing. Varek smiled with satisfaction. They fear us. The fleet pushed deeper into coalition territory, capturing star systems one after another. Every victory seemed effortless. Yet after 10 days of advance, something felt wrong. The planets they occupied were empty. Factories had been shut down. Food stores were gone. Fuel reserves had vanished. Communication hubs had been erased before retreat. The coalition had left behind cities, roads, and buildings, but nothing useful. An operations officer hurried onto the bridge. Your Majesty. What is it? Our logistics division reports unexpected shortages. Varex frowned. Explain. Our supply convoys are struggling to keep pace. Send more. We already have. Another officer added quietly. The distance from our home territory has doubled. The Emperor dismissed the concern. A temporary inconvenience. No one dared disagree. Meanwhile, aboard Orbital Defense Station Helios, Commander Carter watched the enemy's advance with surprising calm. General Kavek could barely contain his frustration. We've surrendered 12 systems. Temporarily. They are celebrating every victory. Good. Kavek stared. Good. The more confident they become. Carter enlarged the tactical map. The less careful they'll be. The Dominion's fleet stretched further across occupied space each day. Their supply lines grew longer. Their escorts thinner. Their fuel depots increasingly exposed. Admiral Serra slowly understood. They've overextended themselves. Exactly. They don't know it yet. They will. The first strike came without warning. A Dominion supply convoy disappeared inside the nebula of ashes. No distress signal. No survivors. 3 days later, another convoy vanished. Then another. No battles. No fleet engagements. Just missing ships. Varek slammed his fist onto the command table. Where are they going? His intelligence officers had no answer. Every convoy simply disappeared. The truth was far stranger. Human raiding groups never attacked warships unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they hunted cargo vessels, fuel tankers, repair ships, medical transports, communication relays. Every convoy destroyed forced the Dominion to slow its advance. General Kavek watched one operation unfold on the tactical display. Your fleet attacked for only 6 minutes. That's all we needed. And then we left. You didn't pursue them? No. You didn't destroy their escorts? No. The old warrior looked bewildered. You had the advantage. We achieved the objective. Kavek slowly realized something profound. Human commanders did not fight battles to win glory. They fought only long enough to accomplish a purpose. Nothing more. Nothing less. Weeks passed. The consequences became impossible to ignore. Dominion battleships began rationing fuel. Replacement parts failed to arrive. Food supplies dwindled. Entire fleets were ordered to halt while waiting for logistics that never appeared. Frustration spread through the Imperial Command. Verex demanded answers. His logistics minister finally spoke. Your Majesty. Speak. We are not losing battles. I know. We are losing time. The Emperor frowned. What difference does that make? The minister swallowed. Our soldiers cannot eat victories. Silence filled the bridge. Back inside coalition headquarters, Carter gathered the senior commanders. The next phase begins now. Lisara looked at the tactical map. The enemy has slowed by nearly 60%. Exactly as predicted. General Kavek crossed his arms. So when do we counterattack? Carter shook his head. Not yet. Several admirals looked surprised. They are vulnerable. Yes. We finally have an advantage. We do. Then why wait? The human answered quietly. Because desperate enemies make terrible decisions. He enlarged the map once more. Right now, they are merely frustrated. What are you waiting for? For them to panic. Only 4 days later, panic arrived. Dominion commanders began competing for dwindling supplies. Entire task forces ignored orders to secure fuel for themselves. Convoys abandoned outer fleets. Communications became chaotic. Discipline, the foundation of the Dominion's empire, began to fracture. Verex watched reports arrive faster than they could be read. Mutinies. Desertions. Supply theft. Internal firefights. Not against the coalition. Against each other. His empire was unraveling without losing a single major fleet battle. The emperor whispered in disbelief. How? No one answered. Because no one understood human strategy. Until an intercepted coalition transmission reached the flagship. It contained only one sentence from Commander Carter. Never interrupt an enemy while they are destroying themselves. Verex stared at the translation. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt fear. Not because humanity possessed stronger weapons. Not because its fleets were larger. but because its commanders understood something the Dominion never had. War was never just about defeating an opponent. It was about forcing the opponent to defeat themselves. On Helios Station, alarms suddenly sounded. Every tactical screen flashed crimson. An intelligence officer ran into the command center. "Commander." Carter turned immediately. "What happened?" "The Dominion has launched every reserve fleet." General Kavek's eyes widened. "They are gambling everything." The officer nodded. "They are heading directly for Earth." The room fell silent. Lysara looked at Carter. "If they reach your homeworld." Carter took a slow breath. "They won't." "You're certain?" He looked at the tactical display one final time. "The last lesson humanity learned." His voice was calm. "Is that when someone leaves themselves only one chance." He activated the fleet-wide communications channel. "You make absolutely certain they don't get it." Across the solar system, thousands of human warships powered up simultaneously. The final battle was about to begin. The number he never wanted to count. The Dominion Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Thousands of warships. Hundreds of carriers. Countless strike craft. For Emperor Verex, this was the final gamble. "Everything we have," he ordered. "Straight to Earth." His remaining admirals obeyed without hesitation. There was no longer any room for caution. Their supply lines were broken, their outer fleet scattered, and their empire was beginning to fracture. Victory at Earth was their only hope. Or so they believed. Inside Earth's Unified Fleet Command, Commander Daniel Carter stood before a holographic display showing every friendly and hostile vessel. The room was remarkably quiet. No shouting. No panic. Every officer already knew their assignment. General Kavek stood beside Carter. "I expected more speeches." Carter smiled faintly. "Speeches don't stop missiles." The room shared a brief laugh. The tension eased, but only for a moment. Carter activated the fleet-wide channel. His face appeared aboard thousands of coalition and human ships. "To everyone listening." He paused. "Some of you have never fought beside humans before." Images of every coalition fleet appeared on the display. "You've heard stories. You've read our history. You know what we are capable of." His expression grew solemn. "But remember something far more important. We are not here because we love war. We are here because someone we love is behind us." Across hundreds of bridges, the officers fell silent. Human. Alien. It didn't matter. They all understood. Protect each other. Protect the civilians. And when this is over. His voice softened. Make sure your children never have to fight this battle again. The transmission ended. There were no cheers. Only resolve. The Dominion attacked first. A wall of plasma and kinetic fire surged across space. Coalition ships broke formation. Not in retreat. In precision. The enemy believed the line was collapsing. Instead, it was opening. As the Dominion fleet rushed forward, hidden defense platforms emerged from behind asteroids, moons, and orbital stations. Thousands of automated drones activated simultaneously. Not enough to destroy the invaders. Enough to slow them. Exactly as planned. Human cruisers struck from unexpected angles. Coalition carriers launched coordinated fighter waves. General Kavek watched in amazement. No one is chasing glory. Carter never looked away from the tactical display. They are chasing objectives. Fuel depots. Command ships. Communications arrays. Electronic warfare platforms. One by one, the Dominion's ability to coordinate began to disappear. On the bridge of the Imperator, confusion spread. Our left flank isn't responding. We've lost fleet communications. Carrier Group 9 reports no fuel reserves. Verex roared. Advance anyway. His flagship surged toward Earth. He could already see the blue planet growing larger through the viewport. Then every alarm aboard the ship activated at once. A quiet voice came over the emergency channel. This is Commander Daniel Carter of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are surrounded. Verex looked around in disbelief. Hundreds of human warships emerged from stealth behind the moon, from high solar orbit, and from deep space positions that had remained silent for weeks. The Dominion's final assault had flown directly into the trap. The battle lasted less than an hour. Not because the Dominion lacked courage. Because it lacked options. Its fleets were exhausted. Its logistics were broken. Its commanders could no longer communicate effectively. Ship after ship powered down. Weapons fell silent. Escape routes closed. Finally, Verex stared at the tactical display. Only his flagship remained combat-capable. His first officer spoke quietly. Your Majesty. The Emperor lowered his head. We've lost. Silence filled the bridge. Then he did something no ruler of the Dominion had done in over 3,000 years. He ordered. Transmit surrender. The message reached Fleet Command within seconds. Every eye turned toward Commander Carter. General Kavek waited. So, what now? Carter answered immediately. Ceasefire. Several officers blinked. Immediately. Immediately. What about the flagship? Escort it. You aren't going to destroy it? No. Kavek smiled. I should have known. Hours later, Emperor Verex stood inside a coalition conference chamber. He expected chains. Humiliation. Perhaps execution. Instead, Commander Carter entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one on the table. Verex looked suspiciously at it. What is this? Our most common peace offering. The Emperor stared. You defeated us. Yes. You owe us nothing. Carter nodded. Correct. Then why? The human leaned back. Because I've already counted enough deaths. The room became quiet. Verex remembered the banquet story that had started everything. The billions. Yes. Were they true? Carter looked out the window toward the stars. Every one of them. Was. Famines made worse by war. Genocides. Disease spread by conflict. Civilizations that chose hatred over understanding. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. We spent thousands of years learning that killing an enemy is easy. Opening them again, he met Verex's gaze. The difficult part is making sure no one has to kill the next one. Months later, the Galactic Coalition held another military banquet. The atmosphere was very different. Laughter returned. Stories were shared. Friendships had grown from a war that almost consumed them all. General Kavek raised a glass. I have one question for the human. The room chuckled. Commander Carter smiled. As long as it isn't about kill counts. Everyone laughed. Kavek shook his head. No. He lifted his glass toward the human. What achievement are you proudest of? The whole grew quiet. Carter looked around the room. At former enemies. Former strangers. Allies who had survived together. Then he answered. The number I'm proudest of. He paused. Isn't the one I counted. It's the one I prevented. No one spoke. Because every soldier in the room understood. A warrior's greatest victory was not measured by enemies defeated. It was measured by lives that never had to be lost. The banquet ended with conversation instead of competition. And from that day forward, whenever a new species joined the Galactic Coalition and someone jokingly asked about humanity's kill count, the older members would quietly shake their heads. Then they would smile and reply, "You're asking the wrong question. Ask them how many lives they're trying to save." Because that, more than any weapon, fleet, or victory, was what made humanity worthy of standing among the stars.